Hello and good evening to all our viewers here today. This is Shashwat DC again on behalf of Azim Premji University, welcoming you, welcoming you to another edition of our monthly webinar series, Nature in Our Cities. Over the past couple of years, I must say now, we have been talking about how nature does not exist only in the forest but also within our vicinity, right across our homes, in our neighborhood, in our lanes, in our even in our schools, all the courtyards and corridors that we frequent all through the day. So this series is designed to bring to attention all the flora and fauna that exist we coexist with, and also become conscious about how we are part of that whole harmonious cycle that itself that we call life. So through these things, if you recall, through all the past episodes, we had experts who have been talking about various species in general. It could be bats, sometimes earthworms, sometimes there was a leopard, there was a Madras hedgehog. So we have been talking very species specific in the past, and the idea has been to promote conservation of these species itself. But one of the most important ways to for to lead that leads to conservation is through awareness, and awareness usually comes from people who write about these topics, people who engage the wider audience on that topic, and who bring to attention a lot of issues that we face in our urban settings, in our vicinities. So with that, keeping that in mind, I have with me a very young and dynamic journalist who has been for past a decade or so been writing
Thank you.
very beautiful copies on on happenings that take place largely in the city of Mumbai and its vicinity, and of course on a broader map of Maharashtra and thereon. So Ranjeet Jadhav, he's a correspondent with Midday newspaper, which is very famous in the city of Mumbai, and he has been writing a lot of interesting stuff, I should say. So this is my chance to have a word with a journalist now. So with that, welcome on board, Ranjeet. It's a pleasure having you today.
Thank you so much for the invite. It is pleasure being on this discussion. Thank you for inviting me.
Yes. So Ranjit, let's dig dive. Let's deep dive into the subject right across. What do you think about? We keep talking about environmental journalism and the fact that our country, the dynamics that we are in right now with climate change and everything, we really need to. The awareness level needs to increase. So, what do you feel about the whole state of journalism, especially in context of environment and nature in India? And where do you see it? You have been a part of this thing for a long time. So how do you see it shaping up?
So, I will start with my journey basically. So, I started my career as a crime journalist. So, I used to cover crime for the Press Journal, a newspaper that is from Mumbai. So, while covering crime, I read a story about a leopard in 2010 while I was working with Midday. I read a story of a leopard that was radio collared by Dr. Vidya Atreya and it walked all the way from Marches Ghat to Mumbai. So that was the story that fascinated me. So when I started my journalism career, environment beat or wildlife beat was something which was a shadow beat. My main beat was infrastructure. I used to cover infrastructure, but over the years, what I have seen is that there is a lot of awareness that is coming in the in people about importance of reading stories related not just to wildlife but also environment and climate change. So over the years, the most important thing that I have observed is now there are newspapers are giving much importance to stories which are related to climate change, climate action, and wildlife, which was not happening earlier. For example, climate change has become a beat in a regular newspaper in Mumbai. Like we have, like sometimes Dipti, one of my colleagues, she covers climate change, and I also sometimes write on climate change, wildlife, and environment. So now it has become a very important beat in news media, and it's not just in newspapers, but we can also see that many years back there were hardly any stories related to climate change which were given importance or coverage in mainstream media, for example, in news channels also. But right now, there are segments which are coming up with regards to climate change, how important it is to act now, how important, how climate change is having impact on each and every person. So the climate beat or wildlife beat is getting importance nowadays.
Wonderful. For the benefit of our viewers, I'll just tell them that beat in a newspaper thing is a
Right.
specific specific thing that each there are a couple of reporters there, so they specialize in that beat. So as Ranjit is speaking, that so we have power sector, transport, and different. So crime is
Politics
one of
and
crime is one of the fascinating beats that I must say. Yeah. So given that you're saying the importance of that thing, but when it comes to the formation of a beat, also when you're covering topics related, most of the environmental issues are also very contentious, in that sense that they kind to raise a lot of either you are for them or you are against them, kind of. How do you manage to walk astray, because as a journalist you have to present both sides of the story usually? How do you manage to
so
present?
I will give an example of a story. It's a wildlife story for which I had gone to Yavatmal near Nagpur. So everyone, like, it was a national story. Everyone must be aware of a tigress named T1, which was also called Avni by some wildlife lovers. And that time there was the tigress which was roaming in that area. It is said that it was responsible for killing at least 13 people, and there was a demand from the locals that the tiger should be captured. So on one side there was a demand from the locals that the tiger should be captured, whereas some people were demanding that this tiger should not be captured because she is roaming in her area, as in it is close to a forested patch where she was roaming. So the tigress should not be captured. So there were two groups which were in, and there were orders also from the principal chief conservator of forest about, there were shooting orders given by the authorities for the tiger to be shot dead. So there were certain animal welfare groups who objected this, and there were people who supported this. So, in order to understand the situation on ground, I, along with my photographer, we visited Yavatmal. So, what I think is, it is very easy for us to sit in cities and say that the tiger should not be captured, or the forest department should not remove that animal from that landscape. In for a better understanding, when I visited Yavatmal, when I roamed the villages and interacted with people, I got to know that there were majority of the people staying close to the. So Yavatmal is an area which has fragmented forest patches. It is not a continuous forest, but in patches. And the tiger was roaming in that landscape. So people staying in that area were dependent on farming for their income. So during so because of the tiger, they were unable to go to their farms late in the evening. So during harvest time, it was becoming a problem. So when I interacted with them, I also understood that there is always a second side to the story. So that is how I reported from ground. When I reported, I also made sure that I include their points in my story, that because of the tiger, how it is affecting the people or the farmers, how the farmers which are dependent on farming for their income are suffering. So those things also have to be highlighted. And while writing the story, I made sure that there were both the sides which were published in the story. For example, farmers who are demanding that the tiger should be captured, and at the same time, how animal welfare groups which were demanding that this tiger should not be shot dead. That was also an important point raised by them. We also made sure that the same version was also carried. Then while doing this story, while writing both the sides, we also made sure that we highlight the issues like the forest department involving a private hunter to shoot a controversial hunter to shoot a tigress, how it was creating a negative image of forest department. So those things were also highlighted in the story. So
Yeah.
while writing wildlife stories, we have to maintain a balance and make sure that you carry both the sides.
Yeah, and
And
that wasn't.
it was only, sorry,
Yes,
and
please.
it was only possible because I visited Yavatmal or Pandarkavda. If I would have been sitting in Mumbai and filing the story, it would have been a straight story that, you know, the decision taken by the forest department to capture the tiger was a wrong decision. But when I visited the ground, I got to know certain other elements also to the story.
That's a very interesting point you raised, Ranjit, because typically it's so often been said that people who vouch for protection of the environment, the activists as we call them, are very, they are away from the ground realities. They don't understand the challenges of the people on the ground, and there's a very difference. We can't have one bill fits all kind of a strategy where we have to also bear in mind what the people on the ground or the locals are, the issues that they are facing, and bring to forth that thing. And if I were to just add, these man animal conflicts are only increasing all across, everywhere, be it in urban areas that we live or in forest. And so how do you, because you have been covering these things, what do you think is the prognosis, what is the solution, how do you approach these kind of issues?
So I have been writing about human animal conflict from last 10, 12 years. So while writing the same, or while writing about this topic, one thing for sure what is happening is the forest areas are getting fragmented. Like the forest cover, it is decreasing day by day. So what is creating problem is earlier there was a connectivity between certain forest areas, wildlife sanctuaries, tiger reserves. But right now, because of certain developmental projects, I'm not saying that development is not important. For sure, development is important for everyone, but it should be planned in a such a way that it does not create problem for wildlife. For example, I can give an example of the recently opened Nagpur Mumbai Samruddhi Express Highway. So while the road was made, the Maharashtra State Road Development Corporation, it made sure that there are proper animal crossing points which are developed along the highway. For example, the stretch between Shirdi to Nagpur, at certain locations there are underpasses and overpasses. So what I see is if we want to really do development, it should be planned in such a way that there are proper mitigation measures which are planned. Still, some people are saying that there are accidents of wild animals which are happening. But what I see is because the Maharashtra State Road Development Corporation or the road agency which developed this road, at least there has been a decrease in the number of wildlife accidents. If there were no mitigation measures in place, the number of accidents which would have been here would have been too many. So firstly, because the forest cover is decreasing, we also need to make sure that certain projects which are implemented by the several agents by various agencies, those projects really needed, that needs to be looked upon. Because for example, sometimes what happens is some projects are planned without even thinking properly. So the authorities need to think about it, ki if a project is being implemented, is it beneficial for the people, is it going to be really helpful. And to reduce conflict, the only thing what we can do is we need to protect the existing forest cover or the green areas. And even if there is a project that is cutting past through a forest patch or near a wildlife sanctuary or tiger reserve, there needs to be proper mitigation measures. And another important aspect what I see is uh, if we really need to prevent conflict, the forest department has to work with the local communities who stay in those on the boundary of those national parks or tiger reserve. We have to we have to make sure that the communities which share space with the wildlife species, they have a positive image of wild animals, and that is only possible when government comes up with certain initiatives or plans wherein the local community staying surrounding the forest or forest areas benefit from certain things like ecotourism, planning ecotourism or other things. It will really help, and that is when the local communities will also you know, be in favor of wildlife.
Yeah, very interesting. Ranjit, I just wanted your purview because, as someone, as we keep seeing all these frequent videos on, Twitter and all, where animals they get trapped in leopards or tigers, or they're being, there's a whole bunch of people. So these conflict zones are the flashpoints are increasing between animals and and humans. And what do you think is the way to deal with these things? Because when you see these videos, they are very disturbing. I remember there was a hyena that video was there recently about a hyena, how mercilessly it was kind of, so how do you what do you feel about, what is the resolution to these kind of things? How can we, reduce these kind of confrontations with animals, especially wild species?
Right. So I will give an example of there is a project called Mumbai Curse for SGMP, which was started which was started in Mumbai after 2009-10. So the Forest Department, Maharashtra Forest Department, the Sanjay Gandhi National Park, and Dr. Vidya Atreya from Wildlife Conservation Society. There was a park director named Mr. Sunil Limay. He was an IFS officer. So they designed the project. What earlier used to happen was every day the forest department used to get calls, like people staying on the periphery of Sanjay Gandhi National Park. They used to call forest department and they used to tell them that there is a leopard sighting in our area. Please trap the leopard and take the leopard away because there will be conflict. People thought that sighting would result into conflict, but because of a project called as Mumbai Curse for SGNP, where all important stakeholders were involved, the forest department along with municipal corporation, people staying in the housing societies on the periphery of Sanjay Gandhi National Park, people staying in tribal hamlets, people like officials from police department, fire brigade department. There was awareness that was created on the periphery of Sanjay Gandhi National Park, and people who were sharing space with these cats were explained that just because you see a leopard passing close to your building, it does not mean it is a conflict or the animal is going to attack anyone. So slowly, what started happening was no more like still there are certain people who report sightings to forest department, but majority of the people staying in high-rise buildings along the Sanjay Gandhi National Park, they don't call forest department and demand that capture the animal, because forest department along with like-minded citizens, an awareness was made by visiting those housing societies. People were told about the do's and don'ts. Like, for example, what is the reason why conflicts happen? The people staying in those buildings or the housing societies were explained that, the main reason for the conflict is there are certain reasons which are there for conflict. For example, if post darkness, you should make sure that you don't venture into the forest alone. You have to take certain precautions. Even if you are passing near a forest, you make sure that you move in groups. If you see a wild animal, don't provoke them. Majority of the time, what happens is people try to provoke the wild animals, and that is what results into conflict. Another example that I would like to give is from the RML colony. RML colony is just adjacent to Sanjay Gandhi National Park, and there are around 27 to 28 tribal hamlets in RML colony. Earlier, what used to happen was similarly when there was leopard sighting, the people used to contact forest department to capture the animals. And there were certain instances wherein the conflict happened. For example, a leopard attack happened. Someone who had gone out to answer nature's call. Okay, so as a journalist, when you used to visit what we realized is that while interacting with people, people told us that leopards have been here since many years. Like tribals used to tell us, but we don't have basic facilities like toilets. We don't have. We are staying in Mumbai. So I'm talking about 2015-16. People used to tell us that RA Milk Colony is very much in Mumbai. There are no public toilets that we have. There is no water connection that we have. There is no electricity connection which we have. So if the government comes forward and if they provide us with basic facilities, we will not have to go out late in the night to answer nature's call. We will not have to go out to get drinking water. There is no proper electricity. So what happened was when media, not just me, but other newspapers and journalists, when they highlighted these issues, what happened is, I remember there is a story that Sachin Tendulkar was a member of parliament. Okay. So he read about these stories from RA Mill Colony in newspapers that, there are no public toilets, there is no electricity, there is no water supply. He announced that he will be constructing public toilets in RA Mill Colony from his member of parliament fund. So he constructed not just toilets in RA Mill Colony, but he also made sure that, he supplied solar lamps to certain households which are staying very close to the forest. And how it helped is because of this, when Sachin Tendulkar donated lamps and constructed toilets, the local member of parliament, the local MLAs, they also saw this and they constructed public toilets. They made sure that electricity supply is provided to the tribal hamlets, water connection is given to the tribals, and this helped in a positive way. For example, the people who were earlier saying that trap the leopard, those villagers right now are not demanding that trap the leopard because they know that they got facilities because of the leopard. Only because media highlighted like the issue of leopards in newspapers, they got basic facilities which were not there for more than 20, 30 years or more than 50 years, despite staying in Mumbai. So this helped in creating a positive image about leopards in their mind. So no more leopard sighting as a conflict now. For example, they call up forest department, this Thana Forest Department, the Sanjay Gandhi National Park authorities. They also do regular patrolling in the area right now. Like they have been doing this, and while interacting with them, so when the forest department officials interact with the locals about, did you see a leopard? Was there a leopard sighting? So they tell the forest department officials, yeah, we see leopards regularly on regular basis, but there is ऐसा कोई problem नहीं कर रहा है leopard.
Yeah, that that's interesting. Man-animal conflict can also be man-animal benefit at times. That's
And
interesting.
people are saying the RA Milk Colony is a classic example, and Sanjay Gandhi National Park is a classic example of how humans and leopards are peacefully coexisting. There are,
Which is
for example,
interesting. Yeah,
yeah,
sorry. No, no, go
no,
ahead.
no,
No,
please go.
I was just recalling the conversation we had with Vidya on this one of the past episodes. And yes, the leopards are an enigmatic species that have adopted, and I think so. You also seem to like them a lot. So tell me about what is it about the leopards that fascinates you?
So as I said, so I started. So I have been born and brought up in Mumbai. I was never interested in wildlife.
Okay.
So even after doing journalism, when I started covering politics and infra, I never had an interest in wildlife as such. Like many of my college friends used to visit Sanjay Gandhi National Park, and they used to tell me during monsoon it is very beautiful. You should visit. So there are Kaneri caves are there. You should also visit RM Milk Colony. But I never visited because there was no interest as such for wildlife or environment. Okay. But this story about the radio colored leopard, as I told you, Azoba, which was radio colored by Dr. Vidya Atreya, and it walked some 120 kilometers in 78 days from Malchis Ghat, is in Ahmednagar, to Mumbai. So this leopard walked all the way from Malchis Ghat to Mumbai, crossing national highways, crossing railway tracks, staying near some industrial areas, then crossing a creek, entering Sanjay Gandhi. That story, it appeared in a newspaper, I think in Mumbai Mirror, if I'm not wrong, it was in Mumbai Mirror. I read that story and I was fascinated. First, I was like, "Hey, this is not possible. An animal, because basically the image of leopard, because I used to cover crime, the image about leopard in my mind was that of a criminal. It attacked people like, so we used to do those kind of stories. Na? So वो एक image था mind में. But when I got in touch with Dr. Vidya Atreya, when I got in touch with Mr. Sunil Limay, Vidya explained us that the leopards, it is a very interesting species. The radio collar, the observations through the radio collars really fascinated me, and that is how my interest in leopards started. So that was for the first time I visited Sanjay Gandhi National Park. Then in 2014-15, while I was also volunteering with Mumbai Club for SGMT, I used to go with my friends Rajesh Sana, Nikit Surve, and we used to install camera traps in the forest, to see if the leopard is using that trail or not. So that is how that's the slowly the interest started, and I started getting into too much. I started getting too much interested because every time we used to check the camera traps, the kind of observations of the images which we used to get were really fascinating. So in 2014-15, as a volunteer, and we have a group in RM Milk Colony. So there are like-minded people. So Rajesh Sanap, who is a researcher basically, he was the one to start camera trapping exercise in RM Milk Colony. We requested Thane Forest Department that we want to do camera trapping in RA because there was no one doing camera trapping in RM Milk Colony. So from 2015-16 till date, we are doing camera tracking in RML colony just to monitor leopard activity. So the interesting thing is we have data from 2015-16 till date, how many animals are roaming in RML colony. So we have basically a family tree of certain animals which use RML colony landscape and who have been there since 2015-16. So it also helps the forest department because whenever there is a conflict, so there are around 8 to 10 cameras which are installed in RML economy. And if there is a conflict, the first thing what earlier used to happen was the forest department used to install a cage or put a cage and trap the leopard and take the leopard away. But because of the data that we have, so from 2015-16 till date, whenever there is a conflict, the nearest camera close to the conflict site is checked by our team members or the volunteers, and we provide. And if we get an image of a leopard in that, so we share that data with the forest department officials so that they can zero down on the suspected leopard responsible for the conflict. In that scenario, the forest department only captures the suspected animals and not any random leopard that is roaming in that landscape. So this is how it is helping the forest department and also the observation that we get from this data is very interesting. For example, earlier, like there was a belief that a leopard it doesn't roam in, like there are not too many leopards together. So we have one observation wherein we got a leopard with her three cubs together, and there was a huge male leopard which was there in that picture. And when we checked our database, that huge male was the earlier cub of that female, which had grown. So the earlier cub is with mother and with the new cubs together at a watering hole.
Oh my god, that's so interesting. Yes. Yes. Okay, so now I'll come to you. So I remember watching this fascinating. I remember it was, I believe, a BBC documentary on leopards or something, and they had done a heat map analysis of night vision and heat map, and I was completely shocked to see how close humans and leopards were crossing each other at times, and leopards were hunting for pigs, of course, and there were dogs and everything. But I think so. How has this relationship between leopards and humans kind of you have watched them at close encounters now. How do you think has it evolved? Are at the other end? I should also say, as a kid, I remember reading about the leopard of Rudraprayag and the the Corbett's rather grim description of that thing. So we don't know how to interact with this species, especially the leopards. They're so close to us. It's a wildlife, wild cat, capable of immense strength and to hurt you or harm you, and yet it's the numbers don't, the statistics speak for themselves that they're not as many, or correct me if I'm not wrong on that thing, as many you would normally associate having a species like that living amongst you.
So I would what I would, my answer to this is Earlier, what was there is, see, 15 years ago or 20 years ago, there were no mobile phones with cameras. We had basic cell phones. There were not many CCTVs. So what I see is the leopards have always been here. It is only that because of the advancement in the technology, everyone has a smartphone nowadays with a good camera. Because of CCTV cameras, the amount of detection has increased. Only because of the CCTV cameras, and now because the internet is like it's very cheap. Earlier, what used to happen was, if you see in tribal hamlets, I'm talking about 15, 20 years ago, people used to sleep at around 8:30. Okay. But because of mobile phones and all gadgets, right now you see uh, people even staying in tribal hamlets sitting at some junction and watching some web series or scrolling through the phones. And that is actually also the time of the leopards when they are out. So this is when these people also they see leopards, they click pictures or videos. Those pictures and videos get circulated. And leopards, they have been years. Like another example is one of my friends who stays in RA. Before we started installing camera traps, his family was very against leopard. Like his family used to call forest department and tell them that we have sighted a leopard just next to our house. We have small kids, we have family members, so please trap the animal. But slowly, slowly, as I told you, when we started the work, when Rajesh and we started the work in RA Milk Colony, we explained one of their family members, who is now our very good friend, Satish. We told him, you see, leopards have been here since ages. They are not causing any problem to anyone. If they wanted to attack, they are roaming so close to your house, but they are not even trying to attack someone. So he said, "Aisa nahi hai." So we installed one camera behind his house. And the interesting thing is, we checked the camera on the third. So the first footage that we see on the laptop is his father gets up early. Every morning he gets up early, and there is a small trail that goes inside the forest just behind his house. And his father is going for a morning walk at around 6. So our infrared camera, it captured the first footage of his father walking at around 6:05 in the morning for a morning walk. We are checking the another footage, and around 6:10, just 5 minutes later, we see a huge female leopard using the same track and going towards Satish's house. And we
Oh,
were
okay.
surprised, like, so we asked his father, कि, Uncle, कुछ दिखा था क्या आपको? Did you see anything in the morning? He said, no, I get up early every day and it's my daily routine. So
Ah,
we did not tell that, there was a leopard in one of the footage. Then we checked the next footage wherein we can see that the leopard senses something and it runs away. Earlier it was right in front of the camera, but it senses something and it runs away from the spot. So we thought, कि क्या होगा? What must be there that made that leopard, run away? So we checked the another footage. We see his father coming back again, normally walking, and
okay.
then again in the next footage, 6 minutes, there is a leopard on the same trail. So this sequence of videos is very much, it very much proves that the way we see them, they are not harmful. See, if you give them the right of, it is only when people provoke them, the conflict might happen. Otherwise, if the leopard wanted to attack his father, he could easily attack. So when we showed the entire sequence of videos to his father and the family, from that day there has been a shift in the way they look towards the leopards. Right now, his entire family, including his mother, they are involved in camera trapping exercise. For example, if Satish has gone out of town, his mother makes sure that she switches on the camera trap in the evening before sunset. And morning, she switches off the camera again.
Okay, wonderful.
That is
That's yeah. So it just goes to prove that leopards have also adapted to living with humans, and it's a coexistence that, and we can live together if we if we do that thing.
at
How many
Mumbai. Sorry.
just for my thing? How many leopards must be there in living in vicinity in Mumbai?
So if we see, 20 million people in Mumbai, 20 million people in Mumbai, Sanjay Gandhi National Park is right in the middle. And
Yes.
According to the research done by researchers by Dr. Vidya Atreya or biologist Nikhil Surve, there and Forest Department. So, according to their study, there are more than 47 leopards staying in Sanjay Gandhi National Park, Film City, RM Milk Colony, and IIT Powai, which is around 140 square kilometers, if I'm not wrong. So, there are 47 leopards which are staying in this area. And according to the researchers and the studies that have been done, this is one of the highest density of leopards anywhere in the world. So
My goodness.
20 million people and thousands of people staying on the periphery of Sanjay Gandhi National Park. If the leopards really wanted to attack people, there would have been an attack almost every day because hundreds of people, because Sanjay Gandhi National Park is surrounded by so many people on all sides, there are certain areas from where people go for morning and evening walk on the eastern periphery of Sanjay Gandhi National Park, on the western periphery. At around 5:36 in the morning, there are thousands of people who go to Sanjay Gandhi National Park for their morning walks. There are stories about people sighting leopards almost every second, third day. Any other, someone or the other who goes for the walk, they spot a leopard, but they tell you the stories that we spot the animal almost every second, third day. And there are certain locations from where these leopards cross the road. So they say, nothing, we saw the leopard, we made sure that, we maintain a safe distance. And if we give them the right of way, there is nothing that they will do. They just walk away.
That's interesting. I guess the leopards of Mumbai have also, they have become accustomed to living in huge numbers. I guess that's is
Right.
it normal for leopards to are they territorial like the big cats, or how are, how do they coexist in such huge? Are the leopards territorial in that sense? Like tigers, they need huge
Yes,
spaces.
yes, they are territorial. They are territorial. For example, we have observed, it is our observation from a point of view of a people who have been involved in camera tracking. So there are certain animals who have their territory. So they are very much territorial. There are
Yeah,
certain territories which are tracking also.
yeah. So and you have how many of close encounters with the leopards have you had personally?
Close encounters, I would say that close interactions, other close interactions. So
Okay.
there have been many, like more than 100. But we also make sure that there are certain times wherein when we go to install the camera traps in the evening around 4:35. So there are certain locations where there is a regular activity. So that time there are so in RA the observation is that there are a lot of stray dogs which are there. So we have what we have observed is certain times when a stray dog is barking towards by looking towards a forest, it is some kind of an indication that there is something there. So when we install the cameras and when we return back, the next day when we go to check the camera, we have observed that there are certain times when at 4:30 or 5 in the evening, we have installed camera traps, and next day when we check the camera, just 2-3 minutes later, we see a leopard using the same trail. But whenever there are close interaction, for example, in RE, many people will tell you that when people travel through the RE colony road, the internal road, there are certain locations from where people see leopards crossing from one side to other. So there have been few interactions on those roads too. But whenever we see an animal or a leopard crossing the road or walking through the side of the road, we make sure that we stop there. We don't disturb the animal. We peacefully observe the animal walking or crossing the road. So there have been certain interactions, and just like humans, what we have observed is certain animals they are very shy. So there are certain individual leopards who are so shy that whenever they see humans, or even if they sense that there is a human or someone coming, they just run away. And there are certain not shy, even when they notice that some people are there, just walk in front of you and cross the road.
So yeah, I remember years back. It was that same route that you were talking about, the Kanheri. caves, that route in Sanjay Gandhi National Park. I remember. So when you take that route, there's a V cut that comes. One road goes towards the Vihar Lake. Away.
Yes,
And there's a
yes.
chowky there, right? At the thing, they have a check post and a chowky there. And I remember talking to the person then, and he used to tell me that after six, Baba, यहाँ पर तो धमाल चौकड़ी होता है. And he was like,
So there are interesting stories from inside also. There are so many like the forest guards or the patrolling team. They also share stories like so. It is very interesting when they tell us कि during their regular patrolling also when they have seen certain leopards resting on the parapet of the the nala passing inside the forest. The leopards are resting for like 20, 20, 30, 30 minutes. The animal is peacefully resting and they are just observing the animal.
yeah, yeah.
So it's
So
people from the ground or people who are doing regular patrolling or who are roaming the forest on day-to-day basis. So during awareness sessions, which the Mumbai Tours for SGNP do, or the forest department does in buildings or in housing societies, these first-hand stories from the forest officials or the staff really help in creating a positive image about the leopards in the mind of people.
yeah. So let's move from one species to another very important species that is there, and the story is not very. I would say the tigers, right? The interaction with tigers with humans and across Maharashtra, especially Tadoba has so many of them. We are seeing a lot of cases in Chandrapur right now. So how do you see those kind of interaction? Here, the story is very starkly different from the interactions where you have with the other cat species, that is the leopards. So how do you see? Because it's a very dichotomous thing. Because we often celebrate the fact that the number of tigers in India are increasing, and we kind of we that there's sense of pride that we are the last home of the Royal Bengal tiger, Panthera tigris. But on the other hand, you see so many of deaths happening all the time of tiger. That I even see some of them, dying on railway tracks, road kills, and everything. So how do you suppose this whole interaction is happening on the tiger front?
So with regards to tiger also, I personally feel that the forest department or at least in Maharashtra, the government is really taking proactive steps to make sure that, as I earlier discussed, the connectivity between wildlife sanctuaries, the forest, or national parks, they are trying to maintain those crucial corridors, the wildlife corridors. And another thing is there are also in last 3 4 years there are several conservation reserves, community reserves, which the government is coming up with. And because the government is also aware that how the tigers are very important, because in central Indian landscape in near Tadoba or all those areas, the people staying close to the wildlife sanctuaries or tiger reserves, they are getting a good amount of employment due to these several tiger reserves and national parks. So government is also coming up with several schemes for the locals, and it is somehow going to help the local communities and in also in tiger conservation. But yes, as you also pointed out, that there are several projects, infrastructure developmental projects, which are also coming up. So there was some railway line which was passing through some tiger reserves. So all those projects really need to be examined whether it is really important to have that line passing through that road or that railway project passing through those crucial tiger reserves. So this needs to be examined or studied in a deep manner. I personally think that that is only when the as we also know that more than 80% of we have India, it has more than 70 80% local population, and the number is going to increase. So when the number is going to increase, the tigers, like other wild animals, are going to disperse to find new territories, to find new homes. And in that scenario, most crucial thing is the existence of proper corridors or wildlife corridors if we want to have a good inflow of tigers.
Interesting. And now, moving from species, you spoke about in context of the leopards. You spoke about RA and your work that you have been doing. But one of the things that RA was most famous for was the whole movement that was there, the public movement for the against or for the metro construction that was there. You know, and you also covered that thing. You also wrote about that topic. So, how do you see these? Interestingly, you said that you have also done the infrastructure beat. So where the need for creating infrastructure, balancing out with the need to destruction of trees and spaces. How do you kind of weigh these two things together?
So, the first and most important thing, because I write on wildlife and environment, many people who are pro infrastructure, they feel that I am against development. Okay. So the most important thing is no one is denying the fact, or I can say, I will always say that there is no denial about the fact that metro is needed. Metro is very crucial. The Kolaba Bandra SIPS Metro Line 3 or any other infrastructure project, it is very much needed, but it has to planned in a certain way that it does not have a negative impact in the time of climate change. When every green space or every tree matters, the authorities, I personally think that they should have planned this project in such a way that it is very easy for them to shift the car shed from RA Milk Colony. There are around 3,000, 2,000, more than 2,000 trees were cut for the car shed, and the location where this car shed is coming, it is not just the car shed, but it is right next to the banks of the river, which is passing very close to that area. So in future, these things might have negative impact on the surrounding areas. And also there was a camera trapping study also which was done in the Karshed area, and there were around 4 to 5 leopards using that area on frequent basis. It is not that one day they are coming and for 5 days they are missing, but they were using that area for their daily activity. And it is not just about leopards. There are several species of birds which were spotted close to that location or in that location. There are several reptile species also which were spotted. And the government, the earlier government, had identified a location to shift the car shed from RML colony to Kanjurmarg. There was a good place where the car shed could have been made. But after the change in the government, the current government said that it is not feasible to construct a car depot over there because there is a lot of cost escalation and all those factors which would arise. So they have again decided to build the car shed in this area. But one thing about the Save RA movement or the Save RA campaign, which had involvement of people from you know all sectors. It is not just environmentalists who are demanding that shift the car depot or don't cut the trees, but like-minded citizens or people who love nature, who know how important RA Milk Colony is to Mumbai. They took part in this, and because of this movement, the one positive thing that happened is during previous government's tenure, 812 acres of area, which is a prime area in RML colony, was declared as a reserve forest by the government. So one at least that much space got protected, which is a good thing. So this moment at least helped in protect giving a protection status to a area in RML colony, that forest. But on the other hand, the another big problem for RML colony is also the increasing amount of illegal encroachments. So there are a lot of illegal encroachments which are also coming up. So the authorities, they also need to make sure that no more new construction or structures or hutments are constructed in the forest area or close to the same. Otherwise, what will happen is a good area which has a rich biodiversity might just disappear.
True, and
Yeah.
I must say there's interesting thing to it is I remember because the location of the RA is such a prime in Mumbai. If you see land is of thing, I remember there was one ex-minister who has suggested that selling off the whole area to settle the debts of Maharashtra.
Yeah,
See, so those are the interesting thing.
right,
It's a very interesting thing that there's real estate, there's species, there's trees, there's commute. There's a very important road that commutes. The Western Express Highway to the Eastern Express Highway.
right.
Those factors have a very interesting place. So how when you report on these things, and these are very contentious things, do you feel the pressure at times on yourself that okay, and we have seen that in the past that a lot of journalists also face these kind of not only pressures but also sometimes there's a very subtle underlying thread that if you bring out these issues you might get you might get endangered by all these things. Have you ever felt those kind of things?
So nothing as such. Actually. But the good thing is, while so Midday was the first paper. I remember we had editor Sachin Kalbag. Mr. Sachin Kalbag was our editor. When he was the editor in chief, it was he who suggested that when this announcement came that 2,000 more than 2,000 trees will have to be cut for constructing a car depot. It was he who said that we should. He is also wildlife and environment lover, so he said development is important. We are not opposing the metro, but we should highlight this in our newspapers. And Midday was the first newspaper to start the Save Our Cities or the campaign. And then after Sachin Kalbag, we had Tina, who is the current editor in chief of Midday. She has also been very much supportive for the stories related to RA or wildlife or environment. But as we had discussed earlier, we make sure that we take both the sides. If we are writing against government or some agency for constructing or coming up with some infrastructure project, we also make sure that we give them also a chance to give their side, because we just can't run stories. We can't run a one-sided story. So otherwise, like there has been no problem as reporting on these
No,
issues.
not only from government, Ranjit. I'm speaking from, as I said, RA is a very prime area, and the encroachments and all. If you write on them, they can be, these are very powerful people that we. So, have you ever felt those kind of pressures?
There, that's there. But see, as a journalist, when you decided to be a journalist, all these factors are obviously going to be there. But thankfully, nothing as of now. I have been writing, and I make sure that I write the stories. Like, if there is something wrong that is happening, there have been certain certain stories wherein I was told by my friends who stay over there that you should not write this issue. There are so we I did a story about illegal brewing units in Sanjay Gandhi National Park or on the periphery of the national park, for which I had to go to certain locations to record what exactly is happening. How do they do that entire thing? So that is a risk part, but yeah, as a journalist, it is my job to highlight something that is very important. So it's fine.
And how do you feel? How do you feel about when, like for instance, you spoke about the first leopard that inspired you to take up this whole thing, Azoba, which got turned into a Marathi movie, and then
Yes,
subsequently the whole Avni thing got turned into the Chedni, that movie with a Hindi movie, right? So how do you see this interplay? A lot of work that is done by journalists gets now translated into a fiction, and it gets
right.
shared on
It
a.
is it is very happy. Like it's a happy moment, or I can say that no one would have like when Azoba movie came, no one would have thought that a movie based on a character inspired by a character which is a leopard might be made into a movie. Or for example, something like Avni, which was a tigress, which was responsible for killing 13 people. It can be made into a story. So the slowly people are interested in watching such kind of stories, and it also helps in projecting those species in a positive way. So movies are a very good medium. Like for example, if I start talking or if I give an 1 hour lecture, people might not be interested. But when it comes in format of a movie or a short film or a documentary, it inspires people in a positive way, and it also helps in creating a positive image of the species like leopards and tigers who are usually seen in a negative light.
But how do you react to the? I remember in the Azuba movie, the journalists were not portrayed very well out there.
So that is fine because that sometimes happens is because news channel journalists. I can give an example. So there was this leopard conflict in Arin Milk Colony in a broad daylight around 9 in the morning. Usually not the time when leopards are roaming or active. So there was a story which came on a news channel. I will not take the name of the news channel. So they said that खतरनाक तेंदुए ने इंसान पे हमला किया or something like that. So when the story appeared on a news channel, my boss, he called me and he told me that you have been writing on leopards. अभी leopard ने इंसान के ऊपर हमला किया. अभी क्या बोलोगे? One of my colleagues said, तुम बोलते हो कि leopard doesn't attack और ऐसा नहीं होता ये वो. चैनल पे दिखा रहा है, that means it is true. So he told me that you should visit the spot and see what exactly happened. So when I visited the spot, I came to know that the person who was injured was taken to a local hospital. So while everyone was doing stories or news channel reporters, they hardly have little time, and they have to report stories like do stories very quickly because those they have to do live coverage or whatever things are there. So I visited the hospital, and while interacting with the victim or the injured person, I told him that broad daylight, a leopard attacked on you. It is very dangerous. What exactly happened? Because I saw your interview on news channel also. So he said that leopard ने मेरे ऊपर हमला किया ही नहीं. I was riding my bike, and at one of the corner, which is a sharp turn, suddenly my bike was taking the turn, and at the same time a leopard was just trying to cross the road. My bike,
Okay.
it hit the leopard, after which the leopard ran, and I fell down on the road and I injured myself. But the news channel reporters or the reporter who came to interview me, he just said that आपके ऊपर हमला हो गया ये वो. Then I got in contact with the reporter who did the story. So I
Yeah.
told him that you did this story, but because of this, people are getting scared now. Like people will be scared to walk on the road during day also. So I think
Yeah.
you should have done it in a thoda proper way or projecting what exactly the reality was. So he
Yeah.
told me, I had a lot of pressure. I had to do 3, 4 stories. So I just went, I covered, and I went away. So when there was another leopard attack after a few months, the same
Yeah.
reporter visited this spot and did a story in a very positive way. So there are
Yeah.
certain times there because of the pressure, you end up making mistakes. No one does it deliberately.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. So I should also I think that we are also quickly running out of time, and there's so much we can. There's so many anecdotes that you can you have with you. I wanted to check with you. You have also been working with the forest department in terms of holding workshops and all. What are these workshops that you do with them? And I'm just curious about that.
So, so these workshops are regarding. So it is for journalists, like for example, Wildlife Conservation Society India, Dr. Vidya Atreya. So along with Dr. Vidya Atreya, she has been working with several forest departments. For example, Karnataka Forest Department, Tamil Nadu Forest Department, Maharashtra Forest Department. What we do is there is a workshop for journalists who report on conflict. So usually what is seen is the newspapers, they carry conflict stories in a very manner. So what we do is when we have workshops for journalists at certain places, for example, in some workshops, and we try to tell them the Mumbai model, the Mumbai curse for SGMP model, how it worked in Mumbai, how there is a media sensitization work that is being done in Mumbai, and how it is helping the forest department.
Okay. I think there seems to be a connectivity issue with Ranjit. He'll be back soon. Yeah. So that's an interesting thing that and I recall. So just for the sake of viewers right now, I recall there was this when Vidya Atre was speaking to us about leopards. You know. Of quite a few episodes earlier. She also highlighted this unique thing that was there in Mumbai, where such a high density of wildlife cats living in vicinity, and yet you're not seeing those many number of cases or conflicts that you have. This is largely because of the awareness initiatives that have been taken, and people have learned to coexist. This is a model that could be adopted by lot many other places, because the fact of the matter is we are seeing such kind of conflicts in almost all our cities, especially at the peripheries, where you have at the peripheries you would have these conflicts with larger species that you have. The tigers would be coming out, going about, or leopards are there. Even if you take the case of Delhi and all, you have these the monkeys, that the macaques and the langurs, those kind of thing. The parliament, they were spending a huge amount of money to get rid of those macaques, for instance. So everywhere across across our cities is seeing these kind of conflicts happening. Ranjit, sorry, yeah, there was a connectivity thing.
Sorry,
Yes,
sorry.
no, that's okay. So, yes, I was talking about Mumbai for SGNP, that program that you were talking about. Yes.
Right. So that Mumbaikas for SGNP initiative, it also had sessions for journalists working in Mumbai. So every year there is a workshop that is organized wherein people or journalists from Mumbai, including newspaper journalists or representatives from the news channels, they are also invited and they are explained about the leopard biology, about Sanjay Gandhi National Park, how important it is, and also about how reporting conflict in a negative way can have a negative impact on the work that is being done towards the conservation of that particular species or for leopards. So similar kind of workshops are also done in remote areas. And what is interesting is the fact that in last 10 years that the workshops are being done, there has been a change in the kind of reporting that is being done in Mumbai with regards to conflict. So what earlier used to happen was earlier there were sensational headlines which were being used during conflict. Over the years, there has been a change in the kind of headlines wherein the headlines are balanced. So no more the newspaper headlines blame the leopards for the conflict. So there has been a shift in the kind of reporting style also that has been happening or observed in Mumbai. So certain things are also, so what we do is while interacting with the reporters in other states or in remote areas, we give them this example and how reporting in a positive way, how a conflict situation, which is a very serious kind of situation, how it can be also projected in a positive way. We explain them, and this certainly helps, you know, during for forest department and also for the man-animal conflict issue.
Yeah, wonderful. So, one more thing that I must highlight is you should also take a workshop on how to use social media for conservation efforts. I think you are a
Very
very
true.
you use social media very actively to not only highlight issues but bring to fore a lot of. So speak a little about, and I think so. We have over 5,000 of very healthy followers, and I would invite everyone to
Right, right.
who's listening. The handle is very
Thank
rich
you.
with a lot of content that is there. So yes, so take us through your journey of tweeting a lot of wildlife stories.
So this tweeting a lot of wildlife stories really helps. For example, I have my very dear friend Virat Singh, who was also a journalist. Now he's into communications. So basically he was very much active on Twitter earlier. So he told me that you should also get active, and it did help. and it really helps. For example, you know that in today's world you have WhatsApp University, wherein just post a video and it goes viral. So there are certain instances wherein leopards video from maybe from Madhya Pradesh, a leopard must have entered some factory or some village. I'm just giving example. Those those videos are forwarded on Mumbai groups, or there are several journalist groups in Mumbai also, wherein environment reporters are there, wildlife reporters are there, and those videos are posted saying that that video is from RA Milk Colony, or that video is from RA Dairy, or from Sanjay Gandhi National Park. So because of social media, the best thing what happens is, before it reaches everyone, I or there are many journalists, wildlife and environment journalists, who just tweet that video or the portion of that video after talking to the forest department and stating that this video is not from Mumbai. So it helps in preventing, so a lot of rumors spread, so it helps in a positive way. So as there is a negative use of social media, for which many people use social media for negative purposes, there is also a positive way if we use social media in a proper way, and it really helps. Otherwise, there are certain websites, or small websites, local websites. They pick up such videos and they immediately file stories. And the power of social media or the WhatsApp, it immediately reaches like thousands of people. So when you just post a video which is not from Mumbai, but is saying that this video is from Mumbai on Twitter by tagging forest department and all the important handles, it really helps in spreading the right information to the people.
That's really wonderful, and I kind of I like the kind of way that you have been using that, highlighting the story. So quickly, if I were to ask you, as a reporter and a writer, we all have our favorite things. So if I were to ask you to rattle off three stories that are very close to heart and you felt very, happy about doing those three stories, if I were to ask you off the cuff, which three would they be and
Three
why?
stories.
Very
Three stories. So my first story that I would say is it's about the wildlife only. It is about, so it is very difficult to say exactly three stories, but the stories that I have been writing on RA, the Save RA thing. I remember breaking the story about how Mumbai Metro Rail Corporation had told JICA that a study that was done by RITES, that there is no wildlife at the car depot site, whereas we
okay.
highlighted species that were found at car depot site. We were the first, Midday was the first to report a story about a leopard which was just next to car depot site. Then recently we did a story about how RML Colony car depot site is is being frequented by not just one but five leopards on a regular basis. That is the story. And apart from this, the series that we did on Avni, the T1 tiger that was killed. So I did the interview of Nawab Shafat Ali Khan, who is a
Okay.
hunter.
Yes.
He was the one who was in Pandar Kavada to shoot. He's a controversial hunter. The interview that I did of him at Pandar Kavada at Yavatmal, it went as a page one story, and he had bizarre theories of how tigers are man eaters. I asked him, in one of my interview, I asked him, how do you come to the conclusion that this particular animal is a man eater? So he told me that हम नवाब हैं, हम पहले से शिकार करते हैं, एंड मैं आंखों में देख के बता देता हूँ कौन सा मैन ईटर है. दैट वाज वेरी बिजार. लाइक I can see in the eye of a tiger and tell that this is a man eater. So this kind of stories, the stories we broke from Pandar Kavada or Yavatmal on Tigress T1, it really grabbed attention. I remember Menika Gandhi was the Women and Child Minister, Union Minister of Women and Child Welfare. She read one of the stories in Midday, and she took a note about this, and she insisted and she told the forest department officials, the head of the forest department, the PCCF, Principal Chief Conservator of Forest, He was asked to go and be on ground at Pandarkauda till the time the tigress is not captured, because she was told how Nawab is creating problems, how he wants to only hunt the tigress and not capture the tigress. So those are the stories. So basically, stories from RA and from the Avni series.
That's interesting. And finally, if I were to ask you, the issues relating to environment. Now that you are a beat reporter, as you might say, but they are very grim. If you look at the way climate change is going to interact with a lot of our things, global warming, the IPCC report also talks about a lot of things that now we have moved beyond the mitigation thing. We have to think about adaptation. And yet, the unique thing about India is we are still growing. We are building, we are destroying, forests, groves, and everything. As a reporter, how don't you feel depressed at times, and how do you deal with these kind of, how do you unwind? I would say.
So I would say that it really feels sad to see the kind of development that is happening without keeping in mind the balance that needs to be maintained. For sure, when we go to the website of the Parivesh, which is the website of the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change. So when we see the kind of proposals that are coming forward for wildlife clearance and environment clearance, sometimes it is very shocking to see that the entire forested patch, which is very rich, is going to be destroyed for a project, you know, which, if one thinks properly, is not even needed. But as a journalist, I told you it is our job to highlight such topics so that at least some things happen. Like, because journalists in Mumbai, they highlighted the importance of forest or RM Milk Colony, because there was a movement, everyone reported, even news channel, it became a national issue. It helped in saving 812 acres of forest. Okay. The question that, car depot is still coming there, that is secondary, but at least 812 acres of forest, which otherwise would have not been given a protected status, at least got that because of journalists, news channels, news reporters, or everyone involved in the process. So this, I look at the positive side. Like, our job is to report. We should keep highlighting or reporting certain things which are not good, which are negative, which might have negative impact. And I'm sure if we highlight projects or certain things in a proper way, the government also takes a positive note about it.
True. This is interesting. I saw a lot of the way you're talking about how the man-animal thing has been reduced in, that it's no more a confrontation in Mumbai when you see, and you see all those kind of example. It gives you a very positive. So finally, the final question is, you became a environment reporter more by chance. How do you see going forward? What is it that you have in mind? A book, a story? What is it that you wish to do?
So as I said, I was never a wildlifer. So because of leopards, I got into wildlife and environment reporting. And slowly, you know, I am very much keen on reporting on species like tigers and leopards. But slowly, I am also moving towards. I want to do more stories with regards to the marine life. So Mumbai has a good shoreline. There are marine walks which are organized by certain groups. The kind of work they are doing on the coastal front is really, inspiring. And it is very interesting to see that, 5 years ago, we were not even aware about the beautiful marine creatures that we can easily spot along the coast of Mumbai. But because of the marine walks which are happening, certain things are coming forward, and there is a lot to report on the marine front, which I want to do. So I'm going to concentrate more on that front also, because I want to, because marine life is also very much important. So there are more stories which might come from that front.
So I saw some tweets from you about collaring of these turtles and all, the
Yes, yes,
mangroves and
yes.
all.
So the thing is, I recently visited. So it is very interesting that last year the mangrove cell of, along with Maharashtra Forest Department, the Mangroves Foundation, they have satellite tagged around five olive ridley turtle that come for nesting on the western coast of Maharashtra in the Ratnagiri Malvan belt. And five of those turtles were fitted with PTT device, or what you called as satellite transmitters, and released back. And two more turtles were satellite tagged this year. So kind of interesting insight they are going to give. Like, we are not aware about how much distance they travel. It is such initiatives taken by the forest department along with the involvement of local communities who have been working there for the conservation of these olive ridley turtles is really going to help. And the kind of, so we are going to get interesting details about how much one of the turtle is traveling, how much hours it traveled, how many days it traveled. So those kind of things which will come forward will really help in better understanding of the species which we were not even aware about.
Wonderful. This kind of completes my whole idea. The thing that I started with. We talk about nature when we talk about nature, we talk about forest, right? But it's there in our city. If
Right,
you take the case of Mumbai, for example, you have leopards there, you have turtles there, of course you have snakes and all those things, and you also have the famous flamingos that flock
yes,
the
yes,
creek. So it's a very rich biodiversity thing, despite the fact that there's so many of biped humans like us crowding the whole place, but still somehow the wildlife have managed to survive in that space.
right,
Yeah. So
great.
with that, Ranjit, thank you so much for your time today. It's been a pleasure talking to you. All the power to you. We look
Thank
forward
you.
to lot many stories, interesting stories coming up from your thing, and we will. You keep. I would again. I will ask everyone to follow him on @ Ranjit Nature, which is a very interesting handle that he tweets on, and you can learn a lot more from them. So with that, I come to an end of the discussion today, and I would also remind all our viewers we have a very interesting discussion happening tomorrow again. That's the nature writing for
Oh,
children
okay.
series. And ironic,
Oh, great.
by a sheer coincidence, the speaker tomorrow will be Ranjit again. It's Ranjit Lal, the author, who has written a lot of books
Oh,
on.
okay, okay. Interesting. I will for sure. Thank you so much, Shashwat, for inviting me. It was a pleasure, talking to you and discussing all the interesting things. Thank you so much for inviting me.
No, it's a pleasure, and we look forward to
Yeah.
a lot more stories and collaborating with you in the future. So, with all our viewers, with that I
Yes.
come to an end.
Yes.
We'll see you again tomorrow at 4 with Ranjit Lal talking about the tigers of the Tabu Valley. See, thank you. Bye bye.
Oh, interesting. Thank you. Take care. Bye.